そういうことを知らず知らずの間に、私たちがこうして成長してきてしまったわけです。
Unaware of these things, of how the universe was formed and how man appeared, unaware of such things, unaware of these things, we have grown and developed and matured into what we are today.
皆さん一人一人のことを考えなくても、ご自分がいつ生まれたかということをご存知の人はないはずです。
Regardless of how man originally first appeared, no one knows when or the moment we ourselves were born. We were not aware of that moment.
知らず知らずのうちにそれぞれの名前をつけられ、
then unaware, unknowingly, we are given our name when we are a small child.
その名前を呼ばれると、その名前があたかも自分と思うようになってきたわけです。
And when we were born, after we were born, after a period of time, we were given a name. And when that name was said by somebody, we thought of it, this is who I am. My name is so-and-so.
それがいわゆる先ほど申しましたが、自他、認識という人が初めてものを認める、相手と自分と区別する認識の芽生えになるわけです。
In other words, this is what is called cognition. When a person first perceives other people or other things, and this is the awakening of cognition or perception of a distinction between we ourselves and things around us, we ourselves and the environment. We perceive ourselves as different or separate from it.
その認識だけの認識そのものの皆さんをいろんな種類の環境が作り上げてきたわけですね。
And it is just this perception, this perceived separation, this distance between ourself and our environment, this perception itself that invents or constructs the self according to the person's surroundings or his living environment.
自分が作ったというものは一つもなくて、みんな周囲のものがあたかも蝋人形を作るがごとくに育て上げてきたものが現在の人というものです。
There is nothing at all that we ourselves have created. It is our environment, our surroundings that has molded us like a doll, molded out of clay, cultivating us into what we have become today.
ここまでで何か質問が終わりだったら受けますが。
He'll stop or pause here right now and ask if any of you have a question concerning this material that he's just gone over.
皆さん理解されてきてますかね。
Do you understand what the material is saying?
よければ続けますが。
If there are no questions, he'll just continue from where he left off.
Doiku Sensei, we can continue. Yes, it's clear.
続きましょうか。どうぞ続けてください。
そういうものでありますから、自分で毎日の生活を確かにしておるわけですけれども、なんとなく満足がいかない、なんとなく物足りなさがすべての生活について回るわけです。
It is because of this fact that it's the environment that molds us, that although we live our daily lives, somehow, somewhere, inside us, there is a feeling of lack or something missing. And this follows us around wherever we are.
満足のないこと、あるいは物足りなさというものが確かに皆さんがお感じになっておることだと思います。
There's probably no one here who doesn't at times feel a sense of dissatisfaction or lack, or have a feeling of something lacking in their lives. There's probably no one here who doesn't have this feeling.
座禅をしておりながらでもそうです。
And this feeling of lack or of dissatisfaction continues even though we are doing Zazen.
座禅をしておる人でも、今これを続けておって、果たしてどうなるだろうか。
Even continuing to do our Zazen practice. Even continuing to do our Zazen practice, we wonder about the outcome of our efforts in doing Zazen.
あるいはまた、我慢をして、自分で我慢をして、これをしておればいいんだというような、それをいちいち自分で決めておらなければなりません。
ごめんなさい。
はい。ちょっと飛んだ。
私ちょっと飛んだ。
うんうん。
And our dissatisfaction about having to repeatedly think to ourselves that we just have to be patient to continue our practice the way we have been up to the present.
そういう不満足さ、あるいは物足りなさから解放される道が、この禅の道、禅道というものです。
But Zazen or Zen practice is the way to liberate or to free ourselves from this kind of dissatisfaction or sense of lack. The path, the way of Zen is the path of liberation itself.
しかも、これから解放されるということではありません。
Moreover, this freedom that we seek is not something that we look ahead to. It's not something that is yet to be.
皆さん、ここのところは、しっかりと胸に入れておいてください。
This is an important point that we should all grasp firmly for ourselves, to understand firmly for ourselves, that it's not something that we look in the future to, finding this freedom or this, what do you say, this losing this sense of dissatisfaction. It's not something in the future that we are seeking.
実は今の皆さんが不満足のまま、あるいは物足りなさのままが、実は解放されておる法そのものであるということです。
The reason for this is, in truth, right now, all of us, even with dissatisfaction, discontent, these feelings just as they are, the sense of lack just as it is, that sense of lack just as it is, or dissatisfaction just as it is liberation, is the resolution to our suffering. And this is the Dharma of things just as they are, the Dharma of suchness, or the Dharma of thusness, to forget the self and to become things just as they are, just as they arise, just as they appear.
これは私たちがこの今の喜びがある、あるいは悲しみがある、あるいは楽がある、苦があるということは、これすべて結果になります。
In other words, what this is saying is that our joy or our sorrow or joy right now, our comfort or suffering as they are all the outcome, are all the result.
結果、原因と結果の結果であります。
They are the result of previous cause and effect circumstances. They are the product of previous causes. Things like suffering and comfort, both of them are the product of previous causes.
必ずそれぞれの今の結果がそれぞれの原因を作ったからです。
And with certainty, without a doubt, each result manifesting in the present moment was created by those corresponding past causes.
結果というものは2つはありません。必ず1つしかありません。
Let's see. The easiest way to, simplest way to translate. Result, kekka is result in Japanese. And the kekka, or the results of for example, the present moment, the result of past circumstances that are manifesting as the result of in the present moment, there are no 2 or 3 results. There's only one result. There's only one outcome from past causes. There cannot be multiple results from previous causes and circumstances.
ですから今のその結果にいかにして結果に素直に従っていくかということが一番大きなことです。一番大切なことですでもいいですね。
Yes.
大きなことです。
There can never be more than one result. Therefore, how to honestly and straightforwardly accept and consent, accord with the present moment is the most important matter at hand.
私たちが座禅をいたします。座禅というのは、これは手段でも方法でもありません。もし今皆さんが修行しておられるこの座というものを手段や方法に使われるならば、それは大きな過ちであります。
We are all practicing Zazen, doing Zen practice. Zazen is not a means or a method to some kind of an end, some kind of outcome. If we try to use Zazen, try to use sitting as a means or a way for obtaining something, it is a very big mistake.
座禅、禅、座というものはすべてのものの結果であります。
Zen, Zazen, and our sitting, all of these, as they are already the outcome, the result.
しかし、法としては確かにその通りでありますけれども、自分自身、人としてどうしてもそれがそのものと、それだけのものと認められないところに問題があるわけです。
According to the Dharma itself, without a doubt, this is our present reality, just as it is, this present moment. But as for humans, we are simply we're not able to accept things just as they are. And this is where the problem lies.
知らず知らずの間に法と人と離れてしまいます。
Without realizing it, without being aware of it, a separation or a gap, a distance arises between the Dharma and man himself.
そういう我見というものが生じるわけです。
And this is what is called the ego, or the viewpoint, or the standpoint of the ego.
そこでいかにどうしたらその距離というものをなくしていくかということが問題です。
The great matter, or the issue at hand for our practice, is how to get rid of this gap between the Dharma and we ourselves, and the ego self.
そのことについて昔から臨済宗とかあるいは曹洞宗とかあるいはその他の仏教の教団が生まれてきたわけです。
And it's for this reason that from the ancient past, the Rinzai sect and Soto sect, along with other denominations or sects of Buddhism, this is the reason why they have all appeared.
その宗派のことは別に問題がありませんけれども、近年に至りまして、いわゆる弊害というものを認めなければならない状態になりました。
There's no particular problem, of course, in the appearance of different sects of Buddhism, the different types of teaching. But in recent years, we have reached a point where one cannot ignore the negative effects of these divisions.
私の方の曹洞宗は、ただ座るということが一つあります。士官ただという行があります。
One of these adverse effects is the teaching of the Soto sect, the sect that we belong to, that I belong to, which is to simply sit. The teaching is to simply sit. This is how the practice of shikantaza is taught.
最初にただというものはどこにもありません。初めからただというものはどこにもありません。
We are taught to simply sit or to just sit, but there is nothing from the beginning that is called shikantaza. There's nothing from the beginning that can be called just, as in just sitting or simply sitting. There is no, originally speaking, there is no shikantaza, there is no just sitting.
そういうないものを認めて、ただと名をつけました。ないものをただと言っただけです。
We simply perceive something that from the beginning, that originally does not exist at all, and we give it a name, just, or we call it something that doesn't, or we call something that doesn't exist. We call it shikantaza.
ただというもの、あるわけはないということです。
And there is no such thing as just as in just sitting.
ただその言葉、ただという言葉にとらわれて、ただ座るということが行われるようになりました。
When we hear the word just or just sitting, we imagine that there is something called, there is some kind of form or some kind of practice that is just sitting.
今、飛行機の音がただ聞こえてくるということはないでしょう。ただという、ごめん。ただというものはないはずです。そこまでいきましょう。
Apparently, when Harada Seki Roshi was given this talk, a plane was flying overhead. It was making a pretty big noise. And he used the sound of the airplane that was flying overhead presently. And he said, right now, you hear the sound of an airplane flying overhead. But there's no one here who just hears the sound of the airplane. There's no one here who just hears it.
そのただを認識することによって人が本当のただと離れてしまっているところに問題があるわけです。
In other words, there is no just when the sound is heard. No one just hears it. There is no just when the sound is heard. This perception of just hearing, or this perception of just hearing something, separates us from truly just hearing it. And this is where the problem arises. We perceive just, where already we are simply hearing it but we perceive that we are just hearing it. So, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. どうぞ続けてください。
ですから、何十年座りましても、相変わらずただという箱の中にしか自分がおらない。いるという箱の中にいるということに気がつかなければなりません。
So we perceive that we are just hearing something, and this is why we have to come to notice that even practicing for many years, the self has always remained inside this box or inside this framework of just sitting or just doing.
そのただの壁が破れない限りは、自分はただという目に見えない絆に束縛されておるということに気がついていただきたいのです。
He wants, and Roshi wants us to become aware of the fact that for as long as we do not break out of this box or this framework called just, as long as we keep perceiving just in our sitting or in our doing, we remain tethered to it like some kind of invisible bond.
座禅をして本当に自由と安心というものが得られなければ本当に時間の浪費であります。貴重な時間の浪費であります。
If we don't attain true peace of mind and liberation through our Zazen practice, then it is just a waste of time. We are just squandering our precious time without any kind of result.
はい、ここまでで、質問をある方は、質問を受けましょう。
Roshi would like to pause here and ask if anybody now has a question that they'd like to raise.
今日のところは、士官多座という言葉に迷わされている人が、非常に多ございますので、ここのところをしっかりと皆さんの胸落ちができるようにしておいていただきたいと思います。
Roshi said that there are probably more than a few people who are, what do you say, they are perceiving just in their sitting, perceiving something like just, that they are just sitting or simply sitting. And that he would like you to be able to clarify for yourself what the text here is trying to say. Roshi、マイコさん、近くおられますか？
はいはい。
はい。
はいはい。もし何か質問があったらちょっと手伝ってもらえます？
はい、わかりました。
すみません。
はい。
Any questions?
ごめん。今日のところ、聞いただけで、皆さんもう胸落ちされてるんかな？
なんていうか、
胸落ちっていうのは本当に納得っていうか理解してるのかな。
理解できた。
Roshi just asked if this point that's being brought up here in the text of the Teisho, if you were able to grasp it, to understand it, to accept it.
Hello, it's a great honor. Thank you very much for being present. And yes, it's understood in our way. And I would have one question I would like to ask.
Please go ahead.
This freedom you are speaking and describing that we are searching and looking to find. Through the practice with all these obstacles we have within us from our past experiences, which are limiting for us from perceiving the freedom we are already experiencing. So what is the nature of this freedom? What is the character or the meaning of this nature of being free from this? Is there something after that? Or is that just something we are aiming to perceive or understand or receive? Thank you.
Michael-san, can you take care of that?
あれかな、自由というものは、どういうものなのか、自然という、ネイチャーって自然だよね。自然というものは一体どういうものなのか、その後なんて言ったんだっけ。なんか聞き取れました、ドイクさん。
いわゆるこの自由になるというのはどういう何か特別なことであるのでしょうか。今以外に何か、何か新しいものが得られるのでしょうかというような自分の、束縛からそれが捨てられたらどのようになるんでしょうかと。
自分の束縛が捨てられたら、事実のみの生活ができるんですね。
Once you are able to free yourself of your restriction, the restrictions of the personal self, the views of the ego self, then you become absolutely free. You can not only find liberation, but you can realize the truth, he says. Awaken to the truth of your original nature.
いつも結果に安住できるということです。
And you will always be able to be satisfied in the present moment, no matter what your circumstances might be.
Thank you very much. It's very clear, and thank you.
ありがとうございます。非常によくわかりました。
But in continuation to the answer, but is that kind of egoistic?
I'm sorry, is it what? Is it what?
Isn't it egoistic to be satisfied anyhow the way it is?
Egoistic? I don't understand the word. What is it? What's the word?
Isn't it? Hi. Isn't it what you just said? Selfish.
Selfish.
Egoistic.
Egotistic?
Egotistic, yeah. Your mind.
自分が満足するのは、例えば自分を捨てて、それ満足する、自由になる、それが、自我、イゴティスティック、それが自己満足じゃないですかと聞いてます。
自己満足というのは自我が満足しとるだけの話ですから、この禅はその自己満足で、済むようなものではありません。必ず自分で自己満足をしておれば不自由がきますので、そこのところは、しけもきちんと自己満足であるかどうかという見極めはきちんとしておりますから大丈夫ですよ。
The finding satisfaction, if it's a kind of egotistic, through what do you say, egotistic satisfaction, there will always become. It won't be long lasting if the self doesn't drop off. If there's always an opinion based on an egotistical view or based on the self, if the self remains, then even if you temporarily find satisfaction, there will be a time when this satisfaction turns into, through circumstances, into dissatisfaction. But once you truly drop off the ego self, there is complete satisfaction.
May I ask something, Doiku Sensei?
Yes.
Originally, we are born with this ego mind structure. All people are born like this. And we have to do all this practice just to drop this ego self and create space for our, again, original self to flourish and become one with what's happening in this moment. So which of these two is the original one? The one that we all born with this ego mind, or the one that is waiting to flourish after such a hard practice?
Roshi、ジホさんの質問ですけれども、
はいはい。
ジホさんは、この自由になるという、あるいは自分の本来の姿を目覚めるということについてですけれども、ジホさんの質問、ジホさんの、見方としては、生まれた時は自我という、構造をまだもうできて、もうすでにあるわけです。自我というものがすでにあるわけです。それが座禅しないと、修行しないと、それを捨てれることはできない。それを捨てたら、また本来の姿に戻りますけれども、その本来の姿に問題があるそうです。その本来の姿、生まれた時は自我があった。自我という構造があった。それで修行して自我をなくしたら、その本来の姿に戻る。それを2つの本来の姿あるんですかというような質問の内容ですけれども。
生まれてきた時には自我なんていうものはありません。ですから、自我そのものっていうのは、先ほども関老師が、提唱されたように、物心がつくまでは人間自我なんてありません。生命を維持するその自然体の、お乳を吸ったり、生きる、そういうのは自我がない世界で十分できておるんです。ですから、その自我がないから、途中からその自我が、自我によって束縛されるから、もともとないことに気がつくというのが禅です。
Gio-san, in answer to your question, first of all, we are not born with an ego or a structure or a form of an ego. We are born through circumstances, and we are at that point free when we're born, free of an ego. But as we become 1 or 2 years old, no one really knows exactly when it is. Then we form a self-consciousness. In other words, we form a dualistic way of looking at things, where first of all, when we were born, we were one with the environment when we were born. And then at a very early age, we started to see the separation or a difference or a gap between ourselves and the environment and things around us. And after seeing this separation, after, perceiving this separation between oneself and the environment, this is where the ego self forms. And this is where, as the Buddha said, that this is the origin of all of man's suffering, is when the ego self, the delusion of the self appears. And our practice, of course, is to return to our original nature before this this dualistic viewpoint of self and our environment, before that appears, is to through our practice to return to our original form. But in the beginning, we do not have a self or a structure for an ego self when we were born.
Yes, I understand this, but again, even in 1 or 2 years old, since all human beings are creating this dualistic way and starting the development of the ego mind, so suffering occurs slowly. That means that it's something that human beings have in their nature, in their structure. It's not coming randomly. It's there. So I consider this also part of our original nature. It's not something that we created. It's there because all human beings have it.
こういう最初は以後はがという自我というものはないんですけれども、誰でも、1歳の時は非常に若い時に自我意識が芽生えてくる。芽生えてくるですから、それが本来のということですから、誰でも自我意識が現れてくるんですので、本来から人間というものはそういう構造もできているという、ようなことを考えています、思っています。
そうなると座禅をしても、その自我が取れるわけはありません。座禅はないものはあると思っておる、そのことに気がつくことですから、もともと自我がそういうふうに構造的にあったとしたら、座禅でそれを取ることはできません。
If, as you say, that there originally is an ego self or an ego, then even through Zazen practice, you wouldn't be able to get rid of it. It wouldn't be able to throw the ego away. But originally, there is no ego self. He said originally there is no ego self. But I think, in the past, Koten Roshi didn't say this, but in the past, Sensei Roshi said that there is such thing as karma. And man's karma is that at an early age, the self just appears inevitably. It's an inevitable thing that it appears, but it's not something that's originally there. 今私言ったんですけども、コーテンロシ言わなかったんですけれども、設計ロシはだいぶ前に、人間には業があるから、この業について、そういう我が必然として、現れてくるというようなことは前に言ったことはあります。今、それをちょっと言ったんです。ごめんなさい、ちょっと言ったんです。
いや、いいですよ。
Can we say it in other words, like human beings have the potential to live free and out of suffering by this practice, by Zazen practice, but this needs many hundreds of years to be expressed in humanity, and only up to now individuals have achieved this state, starting from Buddha or even further back. But up to now, maybe these 2,600 years are not enough for the humanity to change condition and level, spiritual level, and become free. And maybe it's something that will develop in the future as a human, as let's say being fused in human being structure, because now it's not. Now human beings are born with ego self. All 7 billion human beings are born with ego self. And some of them trying to get free from that, but they are so few for the moment. So maybe something that is in the developing of human beings, if we live enough to experience that before we burn our planet and us together. Sorry, it was too long.
Michael-san, can you Mike, ちょっとそれを通訳してもらえる？
はい。もともと、人間は、今の人間はちょっとレベルが低いから、その我を持って生まれてしまったんだけれども、あと何百年とかもっと人類っていうのがこう発達していけば、自我を持たずに生まれるっていうか、ハイレベルな人間にこうなっていくんだろうから、今ちょっとなんていうのかな、今自分たちはそういうレベルではないっていうことを言ってるのかな。合ってます？
それに近いです。はい。
Yeah.
We're not doing a real good job translating this, and I don't know if Roshi's answer is going to be directly answer your question, but let's give Roshi a try, a moment to answer. すいません、お願いします。
どっち？
コテンロシ、何か答えがありましたら、ちょっと聞かせていただければ。
人間にはそのハイレベルだとか、レベルが低いとかというようなものはもともとはありませんので、大丈夫です。やれば必ずでないものをあるとあるように思い込んでることをやめるのが、なるほど、ないものはなかったんだというところに本当に気がつくというのが禅の様子ですから、人間の、生まれ出てきて今の人間が低いとか、昔の人間も高い、今から出てくる人が高いとかというようなことで、決まることではありませんので、安心して座禅に、集中してください。
This is a real thorny question you're asking. One thing Roshi said at the beginning was there is no high or low in Zazen, in Zen practice. There is no poorly developed, or there is no higher development. Zazen is to awaken to the fact that there is absolutely nothing at all. And our problem, our delusion, is that we perceive something that doesn't exist as existing. In other words, we perceive that there is an ego self when there actually is no ego self. There is absolutely nothing at all except everything appearing, everything manifesting due to cause and effect circumstances. Other than that, there is nothing that we can grasp or perceive or become that we can grasp or perceive or realize. Everything is constantly in motion, quickly changing, and we're not, in other words, we're not born with an ego self that we get rid of. Our practice, through our practice, we don't have an ego self that we practice in order to get rid of. Originally, there is no self. We perceive something that doesn't exist. And our practice is to awaken to the fact that originally there was no ego self. There was no self and there was no other, that all things are one. When all things become one, then even the oneness disappears, where there is just things simply as they are.
Yes, thank you very much. This is very clear in our practice. It's there. I'm talking about the scale, since every human being has this illusion of the ego self. How can it be something that is not in the original nature, and it be something that we are creating without being there? You see what I mean? I'm talking about the scale of humanity now, not in its individual condition, its person's condition.
この質問に戻りますけれども、もし誰でも、ある時はそういう我を、自我意識が現れてくる、誰でもこういう自我意識が現れてくる、なれば、もともとこういうなんていう構造、自我が出てくる構造が誰にもあるから、それがあるというないと言えないんでしょうと言われて生まれた時は我がないということは言えないんでしょうというふうに考えているそうです。
はい、それは、考えの中のことだと思いますので、要するに、実相は無相であるということが必ず善と一つになったら、自らがですね、本当にそういうものが全くなかったんだということに、自らが必ずうなずけるというのがこの善なんです。
What you're saying is purely conceptual. It exists something through, conception or thought. Our practice is to awaken to the fact that originally, the original form of all things is no form. That there's nothing that we can perceive. There's nothing that we can perceive as being real or not real, and to awaken to this reality that everything is just as it is without this, this idea of existing or non-existing. Awakening to this fact that things just as they are is the point of our practice. That originally nothing does exist. That everything in it. Okay.
はい。ジオさんのおっしゃるのは、人間の本来、こういろんな癖がありますよね。はい、そういうことを言ってるのかな。
Roshi is asking Gio-san, when you talk about the ego, you say that man has, what do you say, various, we say characteristics, or you say characteristics, or you say habits. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Again, this is what Roshi is saying is very clear, at least for me. I'm talking about, since, yes, people are born when they're newborns without ego self. But as he said, after 1 or 2 years old, they all create this illusion of ego self. And that means that it's not something optional. This is what I'm saying. It's there in our pattern, in our system. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible for 7 billion people to be like that, and only some, the last 2,500 years, some hundreds of enlightened people making the difference. It's about skill, not about essence, and it's about a scientific approach. Since we are all heavy, it must be in our system.
また同じところに戻りますけれども、千代さんの考え方では、あるいは科学的な考え方では、誰でも自我というものが現れてくるから、それが、なんていう必ず生まれた時にそういうものがあるんだ。人間にはそういうものがあるんだ、本来あるんだという、ないと言えないというような。
自我を作り上げるというシステムが人間にはもともと備わっているって言ってるんだよね。
そうですね。
それがいわゆる縁起の法を、この善は縁起の法でしょ。 その原因はもともとは元が一切ないっていう、ないのがより集まってこうやってできてきてるということを本当に理解しないと、どうしてもそういうものが根底にあるんだというものが取れないと、もともとあるものは座禅をしたって取れるもんじゃありません。もともとないから実相は無相であるという、もともとないからないものの上にあるがごとくに、この自分たちの自我が、何のたれべえ何のたれべえっていうようになったら、いかにもそれがあるがごとくに思って、だんだんそれを中心にして今の生活になっておるから、座禅はその本来ないもののところに、ああなるほど本当にないんだということが実証できるというのが禅なんですから。だから、間違われるとちょっとそこのところが一番肝心なところですね。ないものがもともと座禅をしてそういう取れる、もしそういうものがもともとあるとすると、座禅をしてそれが取れるなんていうことはありえません。
Let's see, we're kind of at odds here. Your perception of our true of our nature, and what Roshi is saying, that originally there is absolutely nothing. That everything, saying that there's nothing doesn't mean that there is nothing, but everything forms according to cause and effect. But even though you say that everything forms to cause and effect, there's nothing to in this the result of the present moment in cause and effect. There is nothing that we can perceive as being real or as having some kind of substance to itself. It has things arise due to previous circumstances, and this is the basis of Zen practice. If there was a reality where things existed, and that we were trying to throw something away, then even through Zen practice, you wouldn't be able to throw something away that existed. Our practice is to awaken to the fact that originally nothing existed, and to see the truth of that reality through Zazen practice. He's saying that we say nothing, there is cause and effect, and there's the result of cause and effect, but there's nothing that we can perceive as being something tangible, real, even form or formless, that exists. That's the best I can do to translate what he said.
No, I understood what he said. Thank you. Thank you. I have one more question.
Hi.
Can we have one more question, or it's?
まだ質問あるんですけども、よろしいでしょうか。
はい、あとじゃあお一人だけ。
Perhaps just one more.
You said that there is no ego self as such, as a form. But in our life and during sitting, we do experience a lot of things that arise from within, like many thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations. And if we don't want to call these as ego self, but we still experience them even if they don't really exist. So the practice of just sitting, isn't it to be aware of them during sitting?
まあ本来は自分というものはありません、けれども、座ってる時の特に座ってる時はいろんな、見聞きするあるいは感じる、思うんですけれども、自分がなくてもこういうものが出て 出てきます。そういう、座禅の時は、そういうものを出てくる時は、それに、それを、なんていう、to be aware 出てくるのをいわゆる意識 to be aware of 意識するんですか？そういうものに、いわゆる見るとか認めるというか、出てくるものを、見ていくという、ことが座禅なんですか？
いやいや、そういうものは必ず出てきます。出てきたら出てきたまんまにしておく。相手にせず邪魔にしない。もうこれはもう、本当に抑えて足らないようにするんじゃなくて、出てきたら出てきたまんまにして手をつけないで、座禅は座禅なりという座禅をする。座禅に任す。
座に任す。Well, especially while sitting, but not always while, not just sitting, but in our daily lives, it's the same. That whatever arises, things we see and hear, the things that we feel, touch, think, emotions that arise, our practice is to this is it's easy to say in words, but it's not so easy to convey the meaning. It's to leave the things alone, leave them as they are, not to get involved with them, not to watch them, is to actually just ignore them, leave them alone, don't deal with them, just to leave them arise as they are, without getting involved with them. And you can get, Roshi didn't say this, but you can get deeper into that and say, not even to pay attention to things, not even to notice that they are arising, to become that involved in simply becoming one with the present moment, that all of these things that you see and hear that arise inside and outside is not only to pay no attention to them, but not to take notice of them at all. And this is the content of our Zazen practice. And this is what it means to become one, to remove the gap, to become one with the thing itself.